You ever hear a sound in your own house? A sound you know shouldn't be there? Like something so small that most people would brush it off. A door clicking shut when no one else is home, or the floor creaking in the middle of the night when you live alone. Most people tell themselves it's the wind or the house settling. That's what I used to tell myself too, until the night I stopped pretending because I realized I wasn't alone. This isn't some campfire story or something I pulled off the internet. This happened to me, and I swear on my life, every single detail I'm about to tell you is real. To this day, I don't know what was worse, the things I saw or the things I almost didn't notice. Because the truth is, what happened could happen to anybody. That's the part that keeps me awake. Back then, I had just moved into my first place on my own. A little house, nothing special. 2 bedrooms, old wooden floors, a basement that always smelled like damp cardboard, no matter how much bleach I threw at it. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. For the first time in my life, I had real privacy. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind of place where people waved from their driveways. Kids left their bikes in the yard without worrying they'd get stolen, and folks didn't bother locking their doors during the day. Safe. That's what I thought. And honestly, for the first week or so, it was perfect. Peaceful. I slept better than I had in years. But it didn't take long before little things started happening. Things so small, I almost convinced myself I was imagining them. Almost. The first time I noticed something off, it was barely 2 weeks after moving in. I'd been unpacking late into the night, too tired to finish, so I left a box cutter on the kitchen counter. The next morning, it was gone. I checked everywhere. Counter, drawers, even the trash. Nothing. I figured I must have tossed it by accident and brushed it off. Later that day, though, I went into the basement to grab a box of winter clothes. That's when I saw it. The box cutter, lying neatly on top of a pile of unopened boxes. At first I thought maybe I carried it down there without realizing it. But the thing is, I hadn't even been in the basement since moving in. I hated the place. It was damp, smelled weird, and the single light bulb flickered whenever you pulled the chain. But I shook it off. People misplace things all the time, right? Except it kept happening. Small stuff, always small. My keys would be sitting on the kitchen table one night. Then I'd wake up and find them on the windowsill. A glass I left in the sink would turn up on the coffee table. Shoes by the door would end up on the back porch. Never anything valuable, never anything missing. Just moved. At first I blamed myself. Stress, forgetfulness, maybe even sleepwalking. But deep down it didn't feel like that. It felt deliberate. About 3 weeks in, I started noticing the sounds. The house was old, sure, but these weren't the normal creaks of settling wood. I'd be lying in bed, drifting off, when I'd hear it. Slow, steady footsteps moving across the living room below me. Not quick, not rushed, just walking. The first time it happened, I froze. I remember lying there, heart racing, straining to hear. The steps would go on for maybe 10 seconds, then stop. I worked up the nerve to grab a baseball bat from my closet and check. Every time, nothing. Just an empty living room, the front door locked, windows shut. For a while, I told myself it was in my head. Maybe the neighbors, maybe the pipes. But then I started hearing the doors, not slamming or banging, just a soft click, like someone carefully closing them. Sometimes it was the basement door, sometimes the one leading out to the back porch. Always subtle, but distinct. One night I heard my bedroom door. That night still makes my skin crawl. I was half asleep when I heard it. The softest click, followed by the feeling that the air in the room had shifted. I sat up, staring into the dark, listening so hard my ears hurt. I swear I could hear breathing. Not mine. Slow, controlled breaths somewhere near the corner of the room. I reached over, fumbling for the lamp on my nightstand, and when the light came on, nothing. Empty room. But the door was open. I never slept with it open. Ever. I didn't sleep much the rest of that night. The next morning I told myself maybe I'd left it ajar without realizing it. But that's when I noticed something else. On the nightstand right beside my lamp was the box cutter, the same one I'd found in the basement. I hadn't touched it since. That's when I stopped brushing things off. That's when I started paying attention. For the next week, I made a point of double-checking everything before bed. Doors locked, windows latched, items placed in specific spots. I even started taking pictures with my phone, just to prove to myself I wasn't losing my mind. And still, things would move. Sometimes in small ways, a chair angled differently, a book off the shelf. Other times, more unsettling. One morning I woke up to find every cabinet in the kitchen standing wide open. Another time, I came home from work and found muddy footprints on the basement stairs. Human footprints. That was the first time I called the police. They checked the place top to bottom, found nothing. No signs of forced entry. They told me it was probably old dirt from the previous owner, stirred up somehow. I wanted to believe them. I really did. But that night, as I lay in bed trying to convince myself everything was fine, I heard it again. The footsteps. Only this time, they didn't stop in the living room. They came up the stairs. The sound of those footsteps coming up the stairs. I'll never forget it. Slow, heavy, like whoever, whatever, was down there wanted me to hear it. I froze in bed, clutching the sheets like a kid, holding my breath as the steps drew closer. They stopped halfway up, and the silence that followed was somehow worse. I kept waiting for the door to my room to open, but it never did. I sat there until the sun came up, heart pounding in my throat, staring at that door like if I blinked, I'd miss something. When morning finally came, I grabbed the bat from my closet and forced myself downstairs. Every door was locked. Every window sealed. Not a thing out of place. The stairs didn't even look dusty. For a second, I actually wondered if I dreamed the whole thing. But then I saw it. A single muddy footprint on the floor at the base of the stairs. Not a smudge. Not some weird stain. A full, clear footprint. That was the moment I started to lose my grip. I did what anyone would do. I bought more locks, installed a deadbolt, even picked up a cheap motion detector from the hardware store. I told myself if someone was coming in, I'd catch them. But the more precautions I took, the stranger things got. One night, I woke up to the motion detector blaring. I ran into the living room with my bat, adrenaline surging, only to find the device smashed on the floor. It wasn't knocked over. It was smashed. Pieces scattered across the rug like someone had stomped on it. Another time I came home from work to find every mirror in the house covered with bed sheets. My bed sheets, my blankets, even the one from my bed. I hadn't put them there and I lived alone. I started sleeping less, eating less. My coworkers noticed, friends noticed, but what was I supposed to say? Yeah, I think someone's sneaking into my house at night and playing mind games with me. It sounded insane even to me. Still, the worst was the nights, always the nights. Sometimes I'd wake up to faint scratching sounds in the walls like fingernails dragging across the plaster. Other times it was whispers, too soft to make out the words, but close enough that I knew they were inside the room with me. The more I tried to ignore it, the bolder it became. One night I made a mistake. I decided to confront it. I was lying in bed staring at the ceiling when I heard the basement door creak open. My stomach dropped. I grabbed the bat, crept into the hallway and listened. The sound of footsteps drifted up from below, steady, deliberate. I tightened my grip and shouted, "Who's there?" The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then after a long pause, the faintest laugh. Not loud, not mocking, just a quiet, breathy chuckle drifting up the stairs. I bolted. I didn't even think. I ran out the front door in my socks across the lawn, straight to my neighbor's house. I must have looked insane, pounding on their door at 2 a.m, stammering about someone in my basement. The husband came out with a flashlight and walked back with me. He searched the basement, the closets, even the attic. Nothing, no one. But when we came back up, I noticed something he didn't. The bat I'd left at the top of the stairs was gone. I didn't sleep in the house that night. The next day I called a locksmith, had the locks changed again, and even asked the police about installing cameras. They gave me a look, that patronizing, this guy's losing it look, but they wrote down a report. I spent nearly $1,000 setting up cameras around the house, inside and out. If someone was messing with me, I'd finally catch them. For the first 2 nights, nothing happened. No noises, no footsteps, no missing objects. I actually started to think maybe I'd scared whoever it was off. But on the 3rd night, I woke up to find my phone buzzing. A notification from the camera app. Motion detected. Living room. My heart hammered as I opened the feed. The screen loaded, and for a second I thought it was blank. Just the living room, empty and dark. But then I noticed something in the corner. A figure, tall, thin, standing perfectly still, facing the camera. The app only saved short clips, and as I watched, the figure slowly raised its hand and waved. Then the feed cut out. I wanted to believe it was a glitch, a shadow, anything. But when I went downstairs the next morning, the camera in the living room was gone, just ripped off the wall. The others were still there, untouched. Just that one. That's when I realized something I still hate admitting. Whatever this was, it wasn't trying to hurt me. At least not right away. It was playing with me, testing me, seeing how far it could push before I broke. And I was already close. The following nights were worse. I'd wake up to my bed dragged a few inches away from the wall. I'd find my clothes arranged in piles on the floor, sorted by color. Once I opened the fridge and every single label on every bottle and jar was turned to face me. Precise, intentional. I started staying at friends' places, sleeping on couches, avoiding the house as much as I could.